Is there anything like giving too much answers?
Absolutely. So that is also a terrible idea. The visa officer is under a lot of time constraints. My general recommendation is
Today, we continue our conversation with the former visa officer, Christa Byker, to learn about the right answers to give, creating a great first impression, and showing strong home ties.
when a visa applicant is walking up to the visa window, they're already being sized up. Look like you're happy to be there.
Or how can a student show strong home ties?
What is your strategy there? The big thing is you have to.
Question: is there anything like giving too much answers? Like, yes, we should not give like what's on the I-20, maybe just the bare minimum. But is there now anything like giving too much that could even hurt your chances?
Absolutely. So sometimes when I say to people, okay, you need to go beyond just what's the literal answer, they hear that advice and they're like, okay, now I'm going to give the novel of my life. And that is also a terrible idea. The visa officer is under a lot of time constraints, and you can't just go on forever. My general recommendation is to make sure that your responses are 1 to 3 sentences, no more than that. And so within this planning for how am I going to respond to the questions asked at the visa interview, it's a concerted effort to make your responses concise and strategic.
Okay, thank you. What gives a visa officer a good first impression about a visa applicant? Does like dressing, body language, does that play a part?
Yes, definitely. Like when a visa applicant is walking up to the visa window, they're already being sized up, right? They're looking at you like, what do they have on? What's their body language? And in this sense, you really want to present yourself in the way that an American officer is going to find acceptable, not according to your own cultural standards. Because like if you maybe as a Nigerian, we're going to go to a formal application or to court or to some kind of, something akin to the visa interview, you might think that it's appropriate to wear like full garb, right? Like you look like you're going to a wedding, you look great, you're showing off, you've got a suit on that's like shiny. That kind of presentation is normal in your culture, but you've got to erase that for what you're doing at the American embassy. The American officer you talk to is going to be much more comfortable with your presentation if you present in what is like standard American business casual. So something kind of like what Nzube is wearing, a polo, like a nice polo, no tie, no suit jacket. For a visa officer, all of that looks like you're trying too hard and you might be hiding something. All of the extra garb, right? A nice polo, like I'm not saying go and look like you're going to the beach. Like you don't know. Like that's too far on the other end. But if you go to the visa interview, try to follow standard American business casual, which is polo, no tie, no suit jacket. Women like definitely more casual earrings, not overdone on makeup, anything that looks like you're going to a wedding, you're like really you're really produced, that will immediately make the visa officer think you're trying too hard, which is a poor impression. So the other thing is posture, right? Like confidence in US culture is definitely expressed through a high shoulders, looking squarely at the visa officer. You've got to really practice keeping your eye contact pretty constant with the visa officer. If you're thinking of answers and you're going like, I'm going to East Tennessee University, if you're looking away as you're answering the question, that is going to look sketchy to the visa officer. So really be honing in on like good eye contact. And a very like firm stance, also, and I don't think Nigerians have an issue with this, but there are some cultures where like smiling is not like that. It's not People don't smile as much as in
Okay,
public,
we
but
smile a lot.
yeah. So I don't think that's a problem in Nigeria, but there really are cultures where, like, in Poland, for example, if you smile too much, you look like the village idiot. And so people have a very blank stare on their face. They're just like, for an American officer, that is not as welcoming. So you want to be like not overdoing it, right? Again, if you overdo anything, it looks like you're trying too hard, but look like you're happy to be there. Kind of like a slight smile. You've got a good attitude, a bounce in your voice, right? Like you want to be there. You want to be engaging. That is going to also help the visa officer like be more favorable to your case. And finally, nerves. Like, I think that's the worst part of this whole process. People are very nervous, and you can tell. One way to try to counteract those nerves, first of all, just realize you're talking to another person, right? Don't like deify the visa officer and think like, oh, they're so distant from me. No, it's just another person. Like, I used to do this every day for 5 years. I help people get through the visa process. I'm just another person. I'm not that intimidating. And so that first, like, just kind of take the visa officer off their pedestal attitude. And then really what we're talking about in terms of strategizing your answers, practicing, really getting ready for the visa interview, that is, one of the best ways to reduce your nerves. If you go in there unpracticed, you haven't thought about what you're going to say, you haven't formulated, a strategy for your visa application, that's when you're going to be just totally nervous and tongue-tied at your visa interview. But if you're practiced, you understand what you're getting into, you understand how you want to answer the questions that are asked of you at the visa interview, you're going to just go in with less nerves. So those two approaches, I think they really do help. Of course, you're still going to be a little bit nervous. There's someone who's saying yes or no to something that you really want. But try very hard to put it into perspective and to prepare adequately.
I know it's very easy to get nervous, especially if you like the whole US visa process, going through getting admitted, scholarship, and coming to interviews. Quite a long process, and so it's very easy to get nervous. But it's also important to find ways to calm the nerves down. How can a student show strong home ties with their home country during a visa interview?
So the visa officer is not very likely to come out in, the visa questions, in their questions, and just say, what are your home ties, right? You're not going to be able to enumerate them one by one during your interview. They're probably not going to ask you for any paperwork to show your home ties.
Like land documents that I own.
Yeah. No, they're not going to ask for that. And if you try to like shove it at them in the visa window, they're probably going to say no thanks. So what is your strategy there? The big thing is you have to work into your responses reasons why you're coming home. So we saw that in his visa interview. He said, I said, why do you want to do an MBA? I want to start a consulting firm in Nigeria and return after my program, right? For a student especially, they're at a time in their life where they're not going to usually have 40 years at their job and 3 houses and 5 kids, all the things that are kind of typical ties. If you were a B1, B2 applicant, a student isn't going to have that same level. You want to express what your plans are in your home country after you return. You can do that by, why do you want to do an MBA? Well, talk about your eventual career goals in your home country. Or, sometimes they'll ask, how long are you going to be in the United States? Actually, saying I will be there for 3 months, 3 days, and 5 hours is irrelevant. The length of time, you would be surprised how people sometimes answer their visa questions. The length of time, of course you want to be pretty accurate about how long you think you're going to be there, but that's not actually what they're asking. They're asking, when are you going to leave? And that's what they care about. So focusing that response more on, my program is 18 months. After that, I have to be back in the country because I've been offered a promotion at my job once I've completed the MBA, right? You're not focusing as much on what's the length of study. You're focusing on reasons why you have to leave.
Yeah.
So those are really good ways to show home ties without even being asked. And these little details, they're going to add up in the visa officer's mind, and it's going to help them see, like, okay, this is someone who isn't intending to just abandon the country with the F1 visa.
Still on the matter of home ties, does having a family, like probably a wife and a child, does that come off as home ties in the applicant's responses?
What kind of visa application?
F1, still
Okay.
Student visa.
Yes, having started a family, you're showing that, like, you are going to have real reasons to come back. If you're not planning to go with your, say this Eastern Tennessee State University MBA program, you've got a wife, you've got a kid, they're planning to stay back because you don't want to interrupt the kid's school. Your wife has a job as well. She doesn't want to leave, right? We're just all making this up, but let's say that that's the case. They may ask about your marital situation or what is your family going to do. But even if they don't, you want to kind of talk about that. So, how long are your studies going to be? It's going to be 18 months, but I do plan to come back to Nigeria once or twice because my wife and my son are still going to be here. My wife is an engineer at a petroleum company and she can't leave her job, right? You're plugging in that information even though they haven't asked that specific question. That's what I mean when I say strategy. You've got to figure out what are good little nuggets in your case and how to plant those in responses, even if you don't get that direct question. So whenever like a family, like a wife or child is staying behind and they don't intend to apply for the F2 visa, I always try to help the visa applicant work in, that they do intend to travel back once or twice while they're studying. That shows that they have additional funds, additional funds that they can use, and that this is a real tie for them. Also, you'll notice that I said my wife, who is an engineer at a petroleum firm. If your wife has a professional job, you better talk about it, because that shows two income household, additional income, also just a professional family that gives off a better vibe about the applicant situation, and long-term stability and professional possibilities in the home country.
Okay.
So no one asked, what does your wife do for a living? But we're going to try to get that information out there no matter what question is asked.
Okay. Thank you.